Okay, okay.
Sorry.
We'll wait a couple seconds.
I would too. I think that's the right thing to do. I've seen, I tell you, 10,
Yes.
exactly what happens.
They'll prep her on.
Just waiting for Mr. King here.
I know we're gonna stand up for the pledge and pray, so I'm gonna go ahead and
Stretch now.
Get it done, get, yeah, see you ready.
Your drainage is gonna be a problem here.
Andy, you're at risk. As gimmicks.
It had to be you. It had to be you. There he is. All right. Hey, all right.
So sorry.
It's 2 for 2.
Okay, I'll call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. And in honor of your return, Mr. Thompson, would you lead us in the pledge? I see we don't have a pastor here tonight, so I won't get myself in trouble by praying, but I think tonight we'll just take a moment of silence. Mr. Zetz has lost a family member, and so has Mr. Powell in recent days. So let's just take a quick moment of silence for these folks in remembrance. Very good. Have a seat. Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Powell,
here.
Hayes,
Here.
Barstow,
Here.
Lee, Hicken,
Here.
Walther,
Here.
Carter,
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. First thing on the agenda tonight is citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am. You know the drill. Name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Brandy Croft, 85 South Main Street, Pataskala. And I just wanted to come here today to kind of, I guess, give my support for the need for permanent funding for our parks. And I guess my son is a perfect example, where we say, everybody's heard the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it truly does. Businesses, schools, our parks. Everything is so important. I know some of you know my story of how I became a single mom, and you guys have all been instrumental in helping me raise him. And I have to say, Tim, you are definitely the first one when he was little. Tim and Tammy were wonderful employers. They gave me a flexible schedule when I desperately needed one with a little guy, and Tim was even kind enough to care for him on a number of occasions when I was in a bind. So there's your business. Suzanne, the schools. They are such a blessing to have you at the school, and you have just been instrumental in Corey's life, inside and outside of the classroom, and so is Dan. And Andy, of course, you in the parks. I just can't thank you enough for everything that you in the parks have done for him and helping him grow up. So I basically just want to say, I know Pataskala is growing so much, and that, you know, we're getting more businesses. Our schools just got new funding, so they're going to be able to build some new schools, improve a lot of the things for the kids, and I guess at this point, I don't want our parks to be left to chance. So really, I guess my thing is it does truly take a village to raise a child, because my son is living proof of that, and I think everybody who's had a hand in that I just want to state that it's really important to make sure they have permanent funding. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, let's see, introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion? And roll, please.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. We had a very successful farmer's market. 14 vendors showed up for our first one. They're always usually a little bit light until the produce kicks in, but I want to thank again Alan and BJ, Street Department, for making sure we had our barricades and putting up the banners and stuff so we could close the street down. And it's off and running, so we had great weather, and everybody's excited about the farmer's market. Just remember, it's every Friday, 4 to 7, till September. If you missed the Memorial Day celebration, you missed a good one. I hate to rub it in, but we had a couple hundred folks there, and we did a dedication of the plaque. The American Legion had a laser printed plaque made up of Corporal Thompson from the Vietnam era, and they dedicated that. His family, some of the family members came from over 2,000 miles just to have that dedication on Monday. And we also had the dedication of the McIntyre Boys cannon. Eagle Scout project was complete, and you talk about a humdinger of a replica. This thing is awesome. You'll have to go down and look at it. I didn't know what to expect, but I caught a call Sunday night. The scouts, along with Mr. Dalton, wanted to take it down to Foundation Park and test fire it in a nice, safe area before we fired it off on Monday at Veterans Green. So we experimented with different black powders and came up with just the right one to make everybody happy and not do anything crazy. I had alerted the fire department, obviously, and the police department, so they'd know that was what we were doing. But what a perfect end to an Eagle project. We turned it around and aimed it towards the railroad tracks and fired it off at the end of the day, and it was just perfect. So Civil War is represented down there, and World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. So Veterans Green looked fantastic, and it was a great day. I want to present this to Mr. Walther, my pool membership. I'm sure everybody else has already given Andy their pool membership. This weekend, Penny Zuber, well, this week Jersey is having their camp week. They brought in over 200 kids. In fact, they've had to start using Foundation Park now because they outgrew Municipal. So they're doing their care week. Jersey's doing their care week. And Penny also has a group of adults coming in. She asked for a project. BJ and I put our heads together and asked if they would plant some flowers, knowing that we're going to have a groundbreaking here pretty soon for the police station. They're going to come in this weekend and plant flowers here at City Hall, out at the sign and around the building to make it look really nice. So hats off to Penny Zuber and Jersey Baptist for what they do here. I was asked if I wanted to join our officers to attend the funeral for our Kirkersville chief that we lost. And I'll tell you, it was quite a different perspective to see it from the police side. You talk about some fierce loyalty. We were able to sit, all of Licking County was able to sit very close to the family, and that was quite a weekend, one that I'll never forget. And I thank you, Chief, for allowing me to participate in that. I'm sure you've all heard that the spaghetti dinner raised over $30,000 for those three families. I'm not sure what Kroger's event raised, but those folks are definitely not going to be forgotten. And And thanks again to Alan and BJ again for coordinating with the Kroger's folks so we could have those barricades and cones and make sure that event went off safely. I think we had an officer there also, didn't we? So, very good. All for a good cause. Fireworks is quickly approaching. This time of year is always when I reach out to individuals and businesses to try and raise some money so that we can keep doing it every year, and every year it gets a little bit better. I've already had a nice donation from Duke and Duchess. Inglefield Oil has been wanting to get involved. I had a small business text me this morning and say they want to throw in $500, and Waste Management, through the efforts of BJ and Jess, Waste Management wants to jump on board also. So I think as the fireworks gets bigger and better, I think they'll be well funded in the future. So, if anybody, individuals, I've taken $1 every year from a lady that's down at it's not Tuscany Gardens. What's the other one? Tascola Oaks. There's a young lady, I'll call her, that gives me $1 every year because she wants to donate to the fireworks, and so I'll take anything from $1 to $10,000. So. And again, couldn't have done it without PRA and that seed money. So hope you all join us on July 1st. Got a lot of good stuff that's going to happen again this year. And the cannon's going to be there. The Boy Scouts are going to start bringing that to our events. And what we'll probably do is ask folks if they want to, if we shoot it off every hour or something like that, people can donate and like $10 and we can fire it off. Buy enough black powder and shoot it off. So, of course, the fireworks is excellent because we're already going to be making noise anyway. So, July 1st, Saturday, all day. I want to reach out again to Public Service Department. Thanks for the continuous mowing. It's been a crazy year. I know that as a fact. So, I think we're in our, third round? Third round, and it's only the 1st of June. That's crazy, but thanks for it. Looks great, and also the dead trees. I'm seeing. I don't know how you guys do it all, but a lot of these dead trees and the right of ways are getting taken down before they fall down. So, thank you very much. You've noticed. Hopefully, you've noticed the new banners down on Main Street that were put up on the street lights. Thanks again to the street department for putting those up. The first round of banners were donated by Rotary. And I also have the Fire Association. The other night at our meeting, they inquired about the second round of some banners that we can put up. They want to know the price and how many poles we have so that they can make one that advertises, obviously, the street fair. So we're on our way for folks that are service groups and other folks that want to donate, and we can put some banners up. Different times of the year and seasonal times of the year. Last thing, Suzanne, I need some update on the marathon that's coming up, and I would also need. We had spoken about having a meeting before the street fair at the theater for the residents of downtown to make sure they're well informed. So if you can come up with what you would think would be a good time and a date for that, I will pass that on to the Fire Association.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. King?
And we can certainly come up with a date and we'll send out notifications about it.
Yeah, work with BJ on that also.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's all I have. Mr. Hicken?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really only have one thing, and it's kind of for council to mull over tonight as we get towards the end of the meeting. As the mayor said, in July, our meeting falls on the 3rd. In some places, that is a day of celebration or red, white, and boom or whatever it happens to be. Of course, Tuesday is the 4th. I don't know if council wants to entertain ideas about either meeting on the 5th or, Mr. King, can you help me out? We also talked about possibly doing
Meeting
one
back to back, the 10th and the 17th.
10th and
I
the
know the 5th is typically a Planning Zoning Commission is typically the first Wednesday in each month.
So I know I will be here on the 3rd, but it's very possible that some members of council would not. And so, yeah, I'd rather not do one meeting in July. We got lots of irons in the fire. So if people are amenable to that, I think it'll take a motion. Is that correct, Mr. Zetz? To reset the council dates?
I think the best way to do it, do you want to reschedule or just hold a, how do we do before you hold a special meeting and have the agenda for that meeting? Or are you going to just, I guess you could probably have a motion to move the July 3rd meeting because of the holiday. We're still going to have to get the right notices out because it's going to be
Have to be
off
public.
meeting from the regular schedule.
Well, I just recommend moving it because if we have a special meeting, it's got to be a very specific agenda to hold it. Is that correct?
Well, it would, but I mean, the agenda comes out
True.
well in advance
Good
anyway,
point.
so you would know what it's going to be. It would just be that meeting's agenda.
Good point.
Okay. So like I said, I may make that motion if nobody else does, but that's, if you hear me do it, that's why. So other than that, I have nothing else.
Do we need Mr. Zest to get the general consensus if they want it on the 10th and the 17th, or before you?
I would recommend towards the end of the meeting, if there's a motion made to change it, cancel, whatever it is, that council will provide that consensus at that point.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Tim. Mr. Zetz,
I have nothing, Mayor.
Mr. King.
Just a couple things, Mayor. Coming up on the agenda is a supplemental appropriation. It covers two items. The first being moving some money around in the public services department budget. It is a net zero increase to the budget. It's just shifting money around. The second one is for additional funding for the Taylor Road Trail. I sent an email out to council last week about that ODOT originally made their estimate what it would take for right-of-way acquisition after they did their appraisals and came up with a fair market value estimate. They realized it was going to be more than they had originally estimated. Any money not spent will come back to the city on that. Typically, ODOT is very conservative with budgeting for right-of-way acquisition. They have their formula, and they say it's this much per parcel, regardless how big. So I do anticipate getting money back through that. So I recommend moving forward with the second reading, or the first reading, scheduling for a second. The other thing I want to mention is the tabled medical marijuana legislation. A week and a half ago, sent out information to council with some potential code sections about medical marijuana, how to permit it, providing that the city would have, city council would have ultimate oversight of all of it, all the approvals. Mr. Zetz and I do plan on meeting about that and discussing it this week to see, about moving it forward. It is currently tabled. We know the schedule of cultivation and everything that's going on, and I would like to see some action potentially happen on that at the June 19th meeting. Speaking of the June 19th meeting, we've also discussed the parks levy. As if you recall, I presented a schedule to council about getting the parks levy on, with building a buffer in there of a council meeting before it needs to be to the Board of Elections August 9th, in case there's any changes that need to be made. Again, looking for some direction. I would anticipate on June 19th presenting legislation to place that issue on the ballot if council so chooses, or if I hear otherwise. The next thing I want to mention, or the last thing I want to mention, is to piggyback on what the mayor said about dead trees and also mowing. It kind of took me back several years when I first started with the city. We're in our third round of mowing now. It used to be the city only did 2 per year. We had old equipment. We had staff that just wasn't getting it done. But to be on our third now, council is supportive buying new equipment, makes it more efficient, and just the difference it makes that it makes driving along the roadways and seeing how nice it looks when that happens. The other one is dead trees. It used to be when we'd have storms, rains, anything, the guys were coming in on overtime because dead trees were not being addressed, and we'd have a tree fall during every storm, after hours naturally. But it's rare that happens anymore, just because, we're taking the efforts to trim out stock, the herd, whatever you want to call it, of dead trees. So that took me back when you said that, thinking about it. So happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
BJ, I've got a quick question. On the Taylor Road trail, the 40,000 that was originally estimated, had that been, I know in your write-up, you said that was not budgeted. There wasn't any appropriations for this project in 2017. Good.
It's not that it wasn't budgeted. The original 40,000 was budgeted, and it has been submitted to ODOT.
Okay.
This is coming back an additional 26 that was not budgeted based on ODOT's they sent us, an invoice and said, hey, you guys owe $26,000 more. So that was not appropriated. That's why we're doing the supplemental. That additional 26, the original 40 was.
Got it. That's exactly what I wanted to
Yep.
ask there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's coming out of the Capital Improvements Fund, which, as I mentioned in the email I sent to you guys, can certainly support it.
Just a quick question. If you remind me, do you know offhand what the salt budget was for 2017? Do you know in
Top of my
round
head,
numbers?
I don't remember. I don't know if,
150.
There was at least, it was split between several funds.
Yeah.
The bulk of it
Between
was
three
in the
different funds.
permissive fund.
It was in the 150 range?
150, I think.
That's
in
kinda what I had in
permissive,
my
And there
mind.
may have been 20 or 30 in the street fund.
yeah, 150 is pretty standard.
And do you have any idea, did we spend anything of that this spring? Or
Um,
I should say fall?
I think we used one bag.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No,
probably-
we did spend some of it. We filled up the barns. We did have a couple snows where we filled up. So we did spend amounts that we spent. I don't know off the top of my head, Andy,
Okay, perfect.
but we did spend some of it.
Anything else for Mr. King?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Nicholson?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, since BJ covered the supplemental, half my report's already taken care of. Only thing I want to point out was that we successfully completed the renegotiation extension of the note. If you recall, we borrowed $500,000 for design and construction administration of the police station. And when we originally issued it, we thought we'd be on a 9-month schedule so that we would issue the debt at 9 months and roll that into the construction financing. Well, the timetable slipped a little bit, so we've been extended on the note to August 22nd, which should be more than enough time to get the bids, work through the bids, get the funding. So, yeah, I'm really pleased that went as smoothly as it did, and there were no hiccups. We're on track.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Anything? Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. In your first paragraph under the income tax review revenue, you talk about the collections being somewhat. I think you're speculating a little bit about them being different than what expectations were. At what time will you start to look at that to give us kind of a better idea?
I will tell you, for the last 3 months, it has really swung. The pendulum has gone. This month it's running year to date. We're
Higher.
behind. The next month we're running ahead, and then we're behind. So I keep usually it's in the June July timeframe when I start looking at the revenue projections for the budget process. So so far, knock wood, the first half collections were favorable. So I'm hopeful that's the trend.
Yeah, it seems that's why I was reading your math and such, and it looked like it was above, and then in here you say it looks like it's trailing, and I thought,
It has been a yo-yo, and in all the years past, we've either been behind or we've been ahead, and it kind of stayed that way.
Okay.
This trend is kind of hard to gauge. So, it's hard too when you don't have. We're finally starting to get some history, some track record. Now that we're, 6 full years of collections under our belt, so we're starting to see some history. But, 6 years of history, so we're able to start to do some comparative. But yeah, I think it's tracking higher than it was last year right now. But the question is, when it's as a percentage of budget, whether I'm thinking we're going to do okay, but we're going to keep looking at it.
okay, thanks, Jamie, appreciate it.
Anything else for Jamie? Well, enjoy your vacation, come back relaxed and ready for budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nate?
Yeah, we're all excited about the budget process again. Sorry,
Excited about it.
Staff loves it.
It's that time already. Gee whiz. It didn't make the report deadline, but wanted to let you know. Last year we started to work with the West Licking Fire Department to do some
training at our wastewater facility because it is the most dangerous of all our facilities. And historically, in my previous employments, we've always worked close with them, our local departments, just because we always like to let them know if we're going into a tank or, on a rare occasion, a manhole, of course, with all our safety apparatus. Last year, we were going to do some training. It kind of fell by the wayside. This year, looks like we're actually getting some tires on this. So next week, we're giving a walkthrough and a tour Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to the shifts to kind of give them a run-through of the facility, what we have, and kind of familiarize them with some of the hazards there that also are in the system. And then after that, I believe it's the 15th and the 29th and July 6th, we're going to do some training days down there, similar to like a manhole rescue, a valve vault, and like a tank extraction. We're ahead of the game because we already have like davit arms and hoists and retrieval things available at these tanks, but also if we do get in this situation that we need some help, at least these guys, at least most of them, will be familiar with what and what maybe if something happens, what will take some time to either drain a tank or if somebody would become injured or fall in, God forbid. So kind of excited about it because I got a little background in that myself, and it's just nice to see their interest kind of trickling over to our side. So
And that's never been done before?
not here,
Okay.
not here. Other
Good.
places we have, but
Good.
yeah, it'll be fun, and from a standpoint getting our guys and their crew together, and
Yep, good
that's
group.
all I have.
Very good.
Unless you have questions.
Anything for Nate? Yes, sir.
Yep. Obviously, Nate, I'm really glad to see that you're putting on the, or notifying us of the people that are getting the awards and the recognition from the state. I think that's really valuable. And good job to the people on your team that are doing that. It's wonderful. The second question I had was the hydraulic monitoring study.
Yep.
You provided the information on anything on this that you should highlight for us to see that's either a problem or a good thing?
The numbers?
Yep.
The numbers are what I expected. There's nothing outside of some of our physical testing 3-4 years ago. So that's good from that aspect, but it was just one of those to give an update that we are working on it, and I've got some other folks interested in this material too, so.
Right.
So that
Sugar
was
Run.
some of what
So
part?
Sugar Run is showing you basically what you had thought was out there.
Yeah. And it's not the worst in town, so part of it, with that data was to show that, and
That's what it seemed to say in this.
yeah, it's one of those that, nothing surprising yet, other than the request for additional funds for some of our data work.
Well, I was going to ask that question next.
Yeah,
Who did the report that the incorrect data was in?
that was Pogemeyer
Pokemeyer?
in 2013.
Yeah.
And I can, the current consultant, I appreciate their diligence because as we're going through this again, they are asking for more info and more questions than I recall in 2015.
So the additional, or the corrective information that you're going to utilize within this summary, how is that going to help you with this survey?
I think long-term reliability on the investment in this model, I look at 13, that was our start, but now we're kind of fine-tuning the data and really kind of get closer to actually knowing the predictive performance of our system with a growth factor included in it. So I guess the more data we have on this, the better we can anticipate how the system should perform and would perform under growth calculations.
Great. All right, thanks.
It'll be good. I'm still hoping at this rate, we were hoping to have some good solid info by, I was talking the 5th of May. I told them Cinco de Mayo, but that is passed. So hopefully here before the end of June, we can get some solid numbers and some recommendations from the consultant. So.
I know we're talking about having a utility meeting coming up soon. So you think by the third week in June?
I certainly hope so.
I mean, it's just
We're
something that Tim
getting
and
closer.
Yep,
we need to keep in mind.
might drive exactly when we choose to have it, so.
I think we should.
Thanks.
Because now with the data that we have, they are calibrating and testing the system and performing adjustments based on, what we see, what we know. I would think by then we could have some, at least draft recommendation.
Very good. Thank you, Nate. Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to touch a little bit more on the supplemental, give some reasoning on that. We did last year's budget, and everything looked like it was going to be pretty good. We found out right around the turn of the year that some Mink Phase 2 budget was missed in the past at some point, so some money was not appropriated for the Mink Phase 2 project. When we discovered that shaved some of the original planned budget for the Public Service Department. So we've been operating as frugally as possible all year, so we knew there was going to come a point when we were going to be asking for this. And these are to fund things such as mowing, the fair pedestal reconfiguration for the pedestals down on Main Street that the breakers kept tripping. Annual striping, we usually do about $8,000, $10,000 worth of striping, restriping each year. And street sweeping, we usually do a couple street sweeps. And those don't fit in right now because of this. And then what we looked at is on the salt savings, the budget was actually about $185,000 plus or minus. Of that, we have spent $85,000 and our barns are full. $50,000 of it we're leaving in the salt budget for this fall, which we anticipate should be enough with our barns full. And then we're taking $50,000 to appropriate to these other funds to cover these typical services. We're not trying to go anything above and beyond. We're just trying to maintain the level of service that we usually offer. And as BJ mentioned, it is a net zero within the budget. Other pieces of legislation for tonight, I've got a resolution for the RAMP, CACI, Construction Administration and Construction Inspection for Prime Engineering. They did it last year, did a great job. And they've also doing some of our developments and continue to provide a good level of service. 043 is for the Columbia Road culvert. That's the OPWC project to replace the culvert on Columbia just south of Mill Street. And that one, we're looking at going out to bid here in the next couple of weeks and getting a bid opening in early July. So we did receive funding from the Ohio Public Works Commission for that. And then the last one is 044, which is the Kyle Moore Graham Road stormwater improvements. We're looking at doing an alternatives analysis up there. We know there's a problem. This would be spending just under $12,000 to evaluate that problem and come up with 2 or 3 different available options to solve it. Happy to answer any questions.
Alan, I noticed that you had noted in your report also that you think there's probably a couple other projects that may come in slightly over budget, one of them being the Main Street project. You make a comment that, it seems like the comment is that appropriate funds within the approved, when construction resumes, we'll look at other ways to cut construction cost or appropriate funds from within the approved budget. I'm just a little bit concerned, as I mentioned in the street committee, trying to move the money in June and then having something else come up in August, September when we finish some of these other projects. Do you see another alternative to, and I appreciate you've done the homework on what we spent on salt and what we have in reserve essentially. Is there other options here? Is there less mowing? Do we need to look at some programs to slow down a little bit rather than utilizing this surplus salt fund?
Well, did you want to, BJ?
Well, certainly on Main Street, we have the option of utilizing TIF funds that is in place on Main Street. So, that is an alternative funding source for the Main Street overage.
Would you also consider Mink to be an alternate source if we're over budget on? I mean, we've still got the house as a problem.
Well,
there.
Mink Street, I would look at the capital improvements fund or the general fund for that additional stuff.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay. Anything else for Alan? Thank you, sir. Scott Fulton.
Thank you, sir. One thing from my report, hopefully you got it on Wednesday. I had a sick toddler, so wasn't able to get it out, so I got that out on Thursday. The one thing I did want to mention is that we have the demolition regulations for a public hearing on June 19th. This is just part of our procedure of what the planning and zoning department is doing, where we find situations in the code where you need a permit to do something, but then there's no regulations to go along with this, so this is just correcting one of those situations. So that will be for a public hearing and first reading on June 19th. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns about that prior to the 19th, feel free to send me an email or give me a call. I'll be happy to answer any questions with those. I'd be happy to answer any questions otherwise.
Mr. Hicken.
Have you sent us those?
They should be on the website if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Because obviously I'd like to look them over before we talk about them, so that's, I'll foray into the website and see if I can get them from there. If not, I might call you.
And that's on the council packet page website, correct?
From my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Walther?
Scott, we, at the past Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, there were some things that were brought to light with some problems, maybe I would consider them problems, with the current code for the PM district
Yes.
and the permittable uses that are in that code. One of them was brought to our attention to be a nuclear plant is permitted in the PM district at this current time. So I'm hopeful, and I know you've got a lot on your plate as you've shown us in your report, but those would be some big ticket items. It was, the reason why that was brought to our attention was there was something else being suggested that wasn't as bad as a nuclear plant. That was kind of their position on it. I'm paraphrasing that, but anyhow, there's some of those kind of things that are in the PM district or any other district that we need to look at. I would want to bring that up and try to bring that to light as quickly as we can.
I completely agree, and that's something that's been on our list for a long time. I was not aware of the nuclear plant being permitted in the PM district, but you see other things that Orange Grove farming is permitted use, sugar cane, which I don't know that Pataskala, Ohio is the climate for that.
Could be someday.
Plus, if it's on an agricultural piece of property, it's really
Global warming.
agriculturally exempt. Some things where you look at it and it might not make sense, where you can allow like an attorney's office, a realtor's office, but you can't do an accountant's office, where it's like it's pretty much a professional office. We're kind of splitting hairs at this point. So yes, it's definitely something that's on our list and we probably need to address sooner rather than later, but it's just with the NAICS matrix, it's about 32 pages of 5-point font with all the permitted and conditionally permitted and non-permitted uses. From my understanding, when this originally went through the process with Planning and Zoning Commission, it took upwards of 2 years to get that done. The way I foresee it, we won't take 2 years, but I know it's an arduous process to undertake. But yes, that's definitely on the list with some of the things that we need to do.
Is that something the development committee needs to chime in on or help with in any way?
We could, I think, from my perspective, I think if we want to go through and some of the ones that are blatantly either not a good idea or don't make a lot of sense, we can highlight those and maybe get those changed so that way we don't get an application in the near future for a nuclear power plant. But I think we can do like a two-phase process. Clearly, these are some of the issues that, in my time here, we were able to highlight as these are issues. Let's get these corrected. I think once we get some of the more difficult ones taken care of, we need to go through again and kind of determine what's permitted, not permitted, conditionally permitted. And I honestly think that we could condense some of those down. Just in the case of the offices, call it professional offices rather than saying, listing every potential professional office there could be and saying it's permitted professional offices and go from there. Kind of shorten that list down a little bit to make it easier to navigate and not get bogged down in the details so much.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Scott? And of course, the most important thing, even more important than nuclear plants, is your daughter all right?
Better.
Very good. All right. Very good. Chief Brooks.
Just one quick thing. I wanted to remind everybody that there is a mini triathlon Saturday morning at Municipal Park. They run through the park, down the trail, and then through Bright Waters. So Mr. Hicken and neighbors if you see a bunch of kids and
I'll spread the word.
On bikes.
on bikes. Yes, and that's it.
That's this Saturday,
Yeah.
What
9
time?
a.m.
9 a.m. Okay, anything for Bruce? Yes, sir.
Chief, do you know if the Frontier Ranch has reopened? I saw that there was incredibly loud music on Saturday night. Could hear it in my house.
I think I don't know that they ever went under. I think they allow parties. I think you can rent it for parties.
Okay.
That's
I
probably.
realize it's over. It's out in the township, but I was just curious if we got any complaints because it was
Actually, that's got a big sold sign on it. And
right. I know it just changed hands. I saw it was in the paper.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was
A lot of
it was
graduation
not
parties.
functioning for a year or so. There wasn't anything going on
I
there.
don't think it's functioning. I go by it
Okay.
once a week, and there's a big orange fence wrapped around it, and the sold signs all over it, and it's all grown up. And that was probably somebody's graduation party or something that you were hearing. But
It obviously was not in the city because it was southwest of where I am, or southeast of where I am, so it was not in the city. I called over to the sheriff's department. They didn't know. They weren't aware, but I was just curious.
I'd heard that that's no longer going to be the venue. At whoever bought it, it's going to be
Something else?
yes.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
No
all right.
more noise and music is what I've heard. So
Sound behind you.
hopefully. Anything else for Bruce? Thank you. Committee chair reports. Mr. Hicken, you got anything for us?
No.
Okay. Mr. Barstow?
Oh, no.
Mr. Walther?
I have a street committee report from this evening. We held one at 5:45. We did meet and spoke about the Oak Meadow reconstruction design. Right now, we have a design that's about 30%. We have identified a few issues with that proposed design that Alan is looking into and will reevaluate here in about another 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. We'll convene again and look through some options to try to work out some problems that we found out through the survey and then the design. There's some drainage issues. There are also some infrastructure overrun costs, so that we have to work through that. The other items we talked about, we reviewed the 2017 ramp. As you know, it's been awarded to Shelley and Sands, or Shelley Company, and pre-con is on June the 20th. They are removing, due to a reevaluation of POF Drive, we're going to remove that from this year's ramp. That will be a $50,000 savings, but the reason why it's removed is the second look at the asphalt is that the road is not in as bad a condition as was once thought or had been evaluated to be, and they're going to instead and have in-house fixed some damaged curb. So it looks like that will be enough to extend the life of that road, and we'll see where that ends up. But it is going to be a savings to the overall project. There is a resolution for the administration and inspection. Tonight, I think the committee was unanimously in favor of that, although there's no motion on that. It's a 90-day contract, but Alan believes that he'll be done with that before 90 days is up. We went through a project called Summit Road Drainage Improvement. This is a project that's been covered by some of the news coverage due to some drainage problems in backyards over there, and Alan is continuing to work with the residents over there. Although we do all agree, at least the committee agrees, that we don't have an obligation, but we want to look into this to see if we can help resolve this issue, and some participation by the city may be necessary to do that. But we will require that all participation by the residents, that participation by all the residents involved be required before the city will participate. Then we talked about Colmore subdivision drainage. We're going to do a needs analysis over there to look at the flooding situation that occurs through the runoff through a wetland, an off-site wetland that ends up flooding some residents as well as Graham Road. Let's see, we also talked regarding the legacy signal idea, where the subdivision was presented an idea to put in lieu of putting in widenings and turn lanes on Blacks and on Watkins, we were looking at putting a signal in on Broad Street. It has been shown that that signal is not warranted, and it's not even close to being warranted. So the county, Alan talked to the county, and the county said that they would not be in favor of putting a signal in that location. So Alan went back to the developer. Developer's looking at some alternative ways of doing this, whether that's putting a widening and a turn lane on Blacks and Watkins, or coming back and revising their final development plan to and not have a road that will come out to Watkins. Instead, they would call it. We talked about the Columbia Road culvert and the work that's being done there. The bids, I guess, have not come in. Is that correct? Did I make that note correctly? The Columbia Road culvert.
No, tonight we have a resolution to authorize to go out to.
I got those backwards. It's the Taylor Road that hasn't come in.
Correct.
Okay, so yes, Columbia Road has the resolution, as Alan had said, for tonight. Taylor Road culvert repair, the bids have not come in yet, so we're still waiting to get those in to move forward with that repair. We talked about the retention and detention pond analysis that's in Alan's report, and they're moving forward into now looking at what repairs need to be made and what kind of work needs to be done. And then Mill Street culvert, looking at some alternatives to that, a 60-inch pipe versus a box culvert. Or, yeah, is that correct? 60-inch rather than a box culvert. And that is all that was discussed. If there are any questions?
Mrs. Hayes? I don't have a question, but I have buildings and grounds, so if nobody has questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. We met tonight at 5:15. We listened to Mr. Mick Walker, who is present this evening. He is from Troop 21, and he presented his project idea for his Eagle Scout badge. His project is to replace the old rotting I can't say that word very well, railroad ties, there you go, on the east side of 310, right there across from the Veterans Green. He wants to use a brickstone look, and he's looking at cost for that to kind of tie in the Veterans Green to the other sides. The west and the east side of 310 will have a kind of a mirroring look. And as you come downtown, it'll be a little bit more up to date, as well as the railroad ties, they're getting pretty old. So Mick looked at that. He's got a projected cost, and he's going to look into some fundraising plans. We made a motion to approve the proposal. That'll be something that we be a recommendation to council this evening. He also provided us with pictures of his ideas and several different options for stones. So we also discussed a police station construction update, and the bids targeted to open are on June 29th. And then shortly after that, there will be a what did you say, pre-bid meeting?
There'll be a pre-bid meeting, I believe, and I don't have the date, next week. And then bids will open June 29th with the anticipation of coming to council mid-July, seeking authorization, assuming bids coming favorably to execute a contract.
Excellent. And then there'll be a second meeting in July, right?
Correct.
Okay. And groundbreaking there afterward.
Correct.
All right. We also discussed lightly, just to keep in mind, the mayor would like us to start brainstorming signage ideas that we would consider out front of City Hall that would have City Hall's name as well as the police department. So get some ideas for that. And that would be a 2018 budget item. So, and that's all I have for buildings and grounds.
Any other committee chair? Yes.
I just had a quick question. Do you have any idea how many people have pulled plans for that?
I don't. Okay. I can get that for you. I'll request the plan holders list. The
Okay.
copy company is selling them for us. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other committee chair reports?
Mr. Mayor, one thing.
Yes.
Since Mr. Lee isn't here, we have an ag district application that has come in, and we will be holding a public hearing prior to our next council meeting.
Okay.
And so the ag committee will need to meet that night.
Okay. Who's the chair?
Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee is, okay, and who else is on that? That's
Mr. Barstow.
Barstow?
And Mr. Powell,
Mr. Powell, okay.
so they know.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Is that at 6:50? Is that the?
No, that's a different public hearing. The
Okay.
Ag District will be at 6:45.
Okay.
And so I'm anticipating the Ag Committee at 6:40.
Okay.
Just one application?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All righty, on to unfinished business. Any desire to take 4285 off the table? Seeing none. Ordinance 2017-4287 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Walther. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Ordinance 2017-4287, this is the third reading, an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Pataskala Codified Ordinances.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to adopt ordinance 2017-4287.
Motion to adopt by
Second.
Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion? And roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Ordinance 2000, or on the new business, ordinance 2017-4289 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, first reading.
Ordinance 2017-4289, this is the first reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2017.
Discussion? On to resolutions. Resolution 2017-041, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute an amendment to the Strand Associates Water Distribution System Study Contract.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walther.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2017-042.
So
A re-
moved. I'm sorry.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to enter into a contract with Prime Engineering to provide construction, administration, and inspection services for the 2017 roadway improvements program, better known as the RAMP. Now go ahead.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Hayes. Discussion? And roll.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2017-043, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to advertise, receive, and review bids for construction of the Columbia Road Culvert Replacement Project.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion? And roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2017-044, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with Strand Associates, Inc. to complete a stormwater improvement study for the Graham Road Kyle Moore Subdivision Improvements Project.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Carter,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? Yes,
I
sir.
just want to add, this was discussed at the Streets Committee. I want to make sure everybody's clear. We had in our budget a certain dollar figure, 30,000 plus or minus, to do plans for this Kyle Moore subdivision stormwater. It came back higher than that. This is not, this proposed needs analysis is not a plan per se. It's an evaluation of what's wrong, and we're identifying what's going wrong out there. And once we find that out, then we can go forward with deciding whether we want to have plans or not at that point. But I just want to make sure we were clear, everybody on council was clear, this is not a set of plans. This is a study to evaluate what's wrong.
So it doesn't even give us the fixes?
It'll give us 2 to 3 different alternatives
Okay.
with costs associated with them that we could do to fix the problem.
Give us some alternatives and a price to go with what that might be.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Walther,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. On the motions. Any motions?
I do.
Mrs. Hayes, go
Yes.
ahead.
I would make a motion to approve Mick Walker's proposed Eagle Scout project to rebuild the planting beds at the city's parking lot on Main Street.
Got a motion by Mrs. Hayes.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Carter. Any discussion? And roll.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Okay, before we,
Let me answer. Any other motions first?
well, I was going to say, before you make a motion, let me make a quick comment. I did, since we talked about the meeting at the beginning of July, the charter doesn't actually cover moving meetings, but Section 305 does say council shall determine by a majority of the vote of its members the frequency, dates, and times of the regular meetings in order to properly conduct its business. But it shall hold at least one meeting at least 11 out of 11 months of the year. So I would, if council so wants to move that July 3rd meeting, I would just actually have a motion to move that meeting by a majority vote. I'd scrap that idea of a special meeting. I think the charter, while it doesn't direct it directly, that's an indirect link enough to be able to say if you want to properly conduct business in July and move it to a different day, you can.
Mr. Barstow.
Can I ask one question real fast?
Sure.
So before we make the motion, is this a motion to move, or is it a motion to move or not have the meeting? One of the two. Is
Well,
that option?
It depends on what motion is made. There's no motion on the floor right now. Somebody could make a motion to either move, and I believe somebody's ready to do that.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion.
Mr. Barstow.
Thank you. So it's a two-part, so I move that we cancel the currently scheduled meeting on July 3rd and move that meeting to July 10th at the same time.
Have a motion by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Was that Mrs. Carter down there? Second that?
Yes, it was.
Seconded by Mrs. Carter. Any discussion on that?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Kathy, how do you feel? Am I allowed to ask Kathy a question? Sure. How do you feel about having a meeting back to back? Like, how does that affect you?
That becomes difficult. It's not that we can't do it, but it becomes confusing because you're going to have packet items from two different meetings going into the packet at about the same time. So that can be a little bit confusing.
I was just curious.
And when you have two going on, when you don't have that extra week in between, you're trying to do minutes, you're trying to get the other things together, and so it's not that it can't be done, but it's a little more difficult.
I'll withdraw my motion, but I'd like to make another motion while I'm at
We
it,
need buzzers.
because that was a very good question from Mrs. Hayes.
Somebody write that down. I had a good question.
Question? Or the fact that you
No,
thought
the
it
fact
was
that I had a good
No,
question. Write it down.
I mean, no, it's not.
You're confusing me.
Oh.
It was
I will add one more piece of information. Jessica will be going on vacation in July, and if we have any meeting dates later than our normal second meeting, she's not going to be here for putting things on the website.
And that's fine. I don't know if we're going to move to later than the 17th.
That, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, so that's just another
Maybe, maybe
complication.
not. I don't know.
This is a question for Mr. King. Do you see our workload handling one meeting, or does it need to, or do we have too much going on right now?
Well, where it gets interesting is the second meeting in July was going to be our buffer for which would still fall in if we do the Parks Levy. I think back-to-back meetings, one of those agendas is going to be extremely light, only because of the time it takes to prepare stuff.
so. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So what's from the administration's perspective? What's more problematic, the 10th and the 17th, or the 10th and the 24th? Because my suggestion was going to be 10th and 24th.
10th and the 24th would, in my opinion, would work well.
What do you think, Kathy?
The 24th, like I said, Jessica will be on vacation, and if we can avoid that situation, it'd be preferable
Yeah.
as far as I'm
But we can get stuff on the website if need be.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to have to worry about scheduling meetings around getting stuff on the website, so 10th and the 24th would be preferable.
So if you anticipate one being light, though, couldn't we just have one meeting in July and it'd be a doozy? I'm just asking.
I would think for readings purposes, I would rather see 2 in July than 1.
The
That's
only
my
reason I
opinion.
said it would be light, if it's back to back, we're not going to have time to turn stuff around from the 10th to the 17th or whatever to get stuff on. I think the 10th and the 24th is an ideal way to go ahead and handle it.
With your only caveat is that Jess is not
Jess will
going to
be
be
on
here.
And that's okay. We
10th
can
and the
get
24th,
stuff
okay.
on the website. It's
you have-
council's pleasure what you want to do with, and I know we have other people on vacation, council members, everything, so we're going to miss. But as long as we have a majority, we can continue on.
Did you
I
have
was
a
just
comment?
going to make sure that, Jessica's not the only person that can put stuff on the website for our council meetings, right?
We'll get stuff on the website for the council meeting regardless of when it is.
Excellent.
So has a proposal been made for the 10th and the 24th yet?
Not yet.
Go ahead, Mr. Barstow.
So I withdraw my first vote. So what I would like to do this is, okay, now I got to think about this. So I'm going to move that we cancel the meeting on July 3rd and move that meeting to July 10th at the same time. And secondly, that we cancel the meeting on July 17th and move that to July 24th at the same time. That's my motion.
Got a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion and roll. This is for the July 10th and the July
okay.
24th council meetings at 7 p.m. Any other discussion?
Is this where I tell you I'm a cook at church camp that week? It doesn't really matter as long as we have the majority.
Yes.
Okay. Those poor kids. All
Okay,
right, I'm out. Okay.
let's do a roll there, Kathy.
Okay, Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Hicken.
I'd like to make a motion to direct the city administrator to prepare language to place a .75 mil permanent Parks and Rec levy on the November ballot.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Hicken and seconded by Mrs. Carter. Discussion? Yes, sir.
I hope I worded that right. One of the reasons that I decided to make this motion is, while I first of all, I want to thank Ann Walters, who took the time this week to answer some questions, lots of questions that I had. I was very grateful for that. I was also very happy to get the list of planned upgrades to the parks. So thank you very much for that. I'm personally still trying to decide where I fall on whether a spring or a fall would be better. I look at a wide variety of options that come into play. But if we don't prepare the language and begin to hear it, we'll lose that option. And so that's why I made this motion.
Okay, Mr. Barstow.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Mr. Hicken's comments. I was very pleased to see the additional information that the park board put forward about their plan to manage the funds that they would get from this levy. Tonight, I said it on the street committee meeting, then we heard that discussion here at City Council. With all the things that are going on with drainage issues and culverts and street repairs and things like that, I think that it is, and next year we will start, at some point we'll start paying for on the police station. So I think that these large projects may be better suited to permanent funding source that the voters decide on, as opposed to us having to continually take them out of our income tax revenue because, as Jamie pointed out, our income tax revenue is fluctuating, and even though we're several years in, it's not going to grow enough to pay for these different things. So I was really, my comfort level with how the Parks Board looks at this and how they want to manage things was raised greatly, and I was really pleased, and I think that it would be appropriate to have it on the ballot. They told us they want to have it on in the fall, so if that's when they feel they want to have it. They're the ones who will be promoting this, and so that's fine. I disagree with Mr. Hicken on that aspect. I don't think it's appropriate for us to dictate necessarily when it would be, although we have the authority to do that, but I'm not sure. So I'm pleased. Was very pleased, and I think that the parks are an important part of the city, and I don't want future city councils to have to start making very unpleasant and universally unpopular decisions about choosing between parks funding and fixing streets or culverts and things like that, because I think that's eventually what will happen.
Very good.
Thank
Any other input? Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Wish I could vote. Motion passes. Okay, any other motions? All right, additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak? All right, we'll go roundy round. We'll start with you, Mr. Powell, tonight.
I don't have anything.
All right, Mr. Walter.
We are going to plan on having a street committee meeting sometime in July. It sounds like now it may be the 24th, Kathy, if we can look at that. Well, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong thing here. 20th. Or what's the second
July
one?
24th.
July 24th, right.
You're right.
That was right.
Yeah.
Look at me weird. No, July 24th.
4th of July.
So I'm hopeful we can schedule that for the 5:45 time on that time. That'll give us plenty of time to be able to evaluate the major issue on that one will be Oak Meadow and looking at alternatives. Second thing I wanted to mention was a very successful soccer season finished up on Saturday. Beautiful day. A lot of happy people out there, and I know that Dave is conducting a post-soccer season interview with the coaches to see what can be improved. But I wanted to remind everybody that when PRA did this, the first couple seasons were a little rough, maybe more than just a little rough. So there may be some comments that come in. I think there'll be good and bad comments that come back, and that's a growing issue. A growth issue. This is the largest soccer season that Pataskla has ever had, and I commend the city for being able to put on a successful season, period. I will remind everybody that 11 years ago, the soccer seasons didn't go so well, period. And then they ran them for many years. So anyhow, city's getting back into it. It's new for them, but I think the majority of the comments will be outstanding. And lastly, the pool opened up to a bunch of kids that wanted to jump in 64-degree weather or 64-degree temperature water. It was fantastic. The turnout's been unbelievable. I think we are projected to have 280 plus kids on the swim team, which we are absolutely one of the biggest swim teams in Central Ohio for Little Pataskla. So that's all I have.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
Very good.
That gave me the chills. And it
Very
wasn't
good.
the 64-degree water. All right, we have the triathlon this Saturday. Licky Memorial puts that on down at the park. Always thankful for the police department for being down there and fire, having an EMT down there for us. It starts off at 9 on the bike trail with kids riding their bike through. They'll go through Brightwaters and come out onto Township Road kind of in a loop. They usually chuck their bikes. They throw their bikes and they run 3 laps of the soccer field after that, and then they run up and they swim at the pool. And it is a blast to watch. We do it in 2 heats. We have our older kids take off because they are in it to win it. So then our younger kids, because it's ages 6 to 12, and it is a blast. And I always appreciate Licky Memorial for doing that. They show up with a box truck and they set the whole thing up. It's pretty awesome. So that's this Saturday at 9. Second thing, our story walk was canceled, sadly, just because it was pitiful weather. But we had a really awesome experience the next day on the last day of school. We walked all 650 Pataskla students down there in 3 time slots. So we took a little over 200 kids down at a time. So if the traffic was backed up on Main Street, it's because we were crossing kids and we took them down there. Our second graders sang, and our third graders, we got to announce who the kids were that were part of the story trail. And Branham Signs and the Pataskala Public Library do a fantastic job making that look beautiful. And so if you haven't had a chance to see it, it is called Art in the Park, and the kids focused on their very favorite parts about parks. And it's all these beautiful pictures, and then we embedded quotes. So there's about 50 or more kids involved this year. The Branham Signs and the library partnered to print books of the Story Walk this year. So they have those available at the public library for a donation. They put about $6 into them. They are fantastic books. And so so the Story Trail is, you can purchase it now at the library. And finally, I'd like to congratulate all of our graduates. It's exciting to see so many dreams and cool stories, and congratulations, Corey. I had the awesome honor of being his special guest at graduation. So, because he remembered me from back when I was a young fourth grade teacher, and I appreciate that honor. So I'm just excited for the graduates in our community and all the new things they're going to do. And that is all I have.
Mr. Hicken.
We're going to have a utility committee meeting, as Andy mentioned earlier in this meeting. I think we want to wait till those water studies come back, which pushes me farther out than next week. That's correct, right, Nathan? So I'm going to get with the members of the committee and see how the week of maybe the 19th of June looks. I don't know if that is dipping into vacations, but look for me. We may even be thinking about an afternoon type meeting. We've done that a couple times at the utility, or even earlier. I want to make it accessible to the public, but also fit our schedules. So, and kudos to the utility department for the confined space rescue stuff. That's great. And as the representative to the fire board, I love to see the two entities working together. That's all I have.
Mr. Barstow.
Oh, just a couple of things. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just on one note, there will be a Chipotle will be hosting a fundraiser for the Kirkersville families. If you go to the Chipotle in Heath on 79, the Newark one on North 21st Street, there's one in Reynoldsburg. I have no idea where that is. Or the Blacklick one, which is, I believe, at Rose Hill and Broad. If you tell the cashier that you're there, they will donate, I believe it's 50% of the proceeds to a general fund for the families that are affected by Kirkersville. That is tomorrow during their business hours. So if you have a chance to go there, that would be a good thing to do. And finally, congratulations to the Watkins Rugby boys team, who I believe this is their second year in existence, and they've been to the state semifinals both times. So congratulations to them. A friend of mine's son plays on that team, and to Coach Hayes and the good work.
And Coach Brooks.
That's right, Coach Brooks. That's right, absolutely. That they do there. So
Thank you. I'll tell them.
Great. That's all I have. Thanks.
There was one thing I forgot to mention. It was the Girl Scouts really stepped up this year, and they planted, besides the Boy Scouts who planted the remainder of the flowers that didn't sell at the flower sale for Mother's Day. The Girl Scouts spent a lot of time down at Veterans Green, so they're starting to get a lot more involved, which I love to see. Mrs. Carter?
We will be having a development committee meeting on June 19th. Would we decide, Kathy, 5:30? I think it's 5:30, the time we decided for that.
Yes.
Okay. Wanted to also congratulate the City Parks and Recs Department for getting through our first soccer season. Obviously, with the assistance of others who've been doing it for a while. It was the first time my little guy played, and he made his first goal in his last game. So he wasn't happy that the season was over because now he thought he was a star. So that went very well, and I'm obviously excited to be taking the next step with our Parks and Recs department in looking for a permanent funding source. I think we have taken that first big step. We've come to the point where it's time to go to the next one, and that will be in the hands of our citizens to decide. And finally, I just want to thank Mick Walker for coming this evening. I'm always amazed to see the ideas that the kids come up with for Eagle Scout projects and what it does, again, to our community where things are just done by volunteers and it looks wonderful. And I have a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.